Welcome to the Inner Athlete Podcast, where we discuss all things youth athlete development and youth mentoring. Welcome back to the podcast. What we're going to do today is we've got Dave here. Dave has been one of our coaches for just over 2 years now. He's been here since almost from the get-go when Inner Athlete was established here, just across the road from Moorabbin Airport. For those who don't know, he is one of our residential powerlifters. Well, he's just jacked as a coach, really. Super strong, competed recently in a competition, did relatively well to his standards. But he is a very strong lad, a very humble lad as well. Yeah.
Very humble, very humble.
But what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about supplements for youth athletes, and I think this is a relevant topic because we have had quite a few conversations with not just our youth athletes, but just some of our younger members in general about the supplementation utilization, and they want to get a bit more out of their training. So what we're going to do is Dave and I are going to go a little bit deeper into this topic and give you like a final verdict on what supplements that we believe that are relatively safe for youth athletes, but so what are some red flags at the same time? So what are the green flags and the red flags when it comes to the supplementation world? But what do we need to be doing specifically first? And we need to define the difference between dietary and sports supplements as well. So Dave, I'll let you roll with it.
Obviously the nature of the word supplement means that we're supplementing something. So if we go to the medication aisle in Woolies or Coles, we'll see some kind of supplement, and they'll be typically your dietary supplement, so magnesium sort of stuff, and
keep going. No, you're right.
Yeah, magnesium, iron, vitamin C, vitamin B, that sort of stuff. So they're going to be your dietary sort of supplements. Whereas we want to be able to find the difference between a dietary supplement and a sports supplement. And so that's what we'll go into more into today. So sports supplements are going to be more things that are designed and manufactured to help sport performance. But in that sort of industry, there's going to be the good sports supplements and the bad sports supplements. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess with the sporting supplements world, obviously, it kind of gets broken down to help to improve performance, but then they can also be broken down to help improve recovery as well. So, when it comes to like the marketing side, how do you think it's been sold to the general public, but how do you think it's been sold to younger kids? Because like you've got Logan Paul, you've got KSI, you've got The Rock, you've got all these big celebrities now that actually attract the younger market, the younger kids, and they're actually buying up these products and consuming them. Why is it so appealing for people to actually take sports supplements in their training? What's kind of like, what are they being sold?
Yeah, I guess if we look back to the dawn of social media and the Hollywoodization of the male physique and things like that, is obviously society or today's sort of beauty standards are that you're ripped, you're lean, you're six pack abs, you've got muscles and things like that. So people believe that they have to look like that, and so the sports supplement industry, or this is the supplement bodybuilding supplement industry, will target supplements to have that outcome. And young kids, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, starting to go to the gym, want to take supplements that will help them achieve their goal of getting leaner, put size on, be more athletic and things like that. So essentially they're being sold in a way that will help the person or the athlete achieve their goal, but perhaps the athlete being sold to has unrealistic expectations of how quick they're going to achieve that goal, and they think that this supplement's going to help them get there quicker, or if not, instantly.
I think that's a good point. You said, I definitely think it's for kids these days. We're in the world of instant gratification. So I think a lot of kids want to try and fast track the progress, fast track the road to achieving their goals. And I believe this can be a bit of a trap for people that they get sold that it's going to help them with X, Y, Z. But if we go back to the literature and just basically if we consume a well-rounded diet, that's going to cover a majority of that anyways in the first place. As you mentioned before, supplements is just an add-on to get that extra 1 or 2% from your training. But let's go a little bit deeper. Like, we've kind of got two worlds. We're like, people that want to put on mass. We've got people that want to drop weight. Then we also got people who just want to just push themselves to oblivion in terms of like the performance side. So let's go in the subconscious desires. So we talk about like mass gainers. Like, what's the purpose of a mass gainer for young kids specifically?
So essentially a mass gainer is just I guess you could say a dietary and a sports supplement. It's typically protein powder with some sort of digestible carb source, so whether it be dextrose or something along those lines. It's an easily digestible processed carb source, and usually has some sort of fats in there as well. So when we combine protein, carbs and fats, we have quite a big calorie bomb. And the mass gainer, the word itself is we're trying to gain mass, and I think people get mass and weight confused. I think mass is muscle, but essentially when you're going to have a mass gainer, you're essentially going to be putting on a lot of calories in your body, which puts you in a calorie surplus, which is going to essentially put you in a position where you're going to put on weight. And for young kids training in the gym, this would be a good place to start if they're not having a lot of calories in their daily intake and training really hard, and that will help them build muscle. But again, the marketing and the labeling of these supplements say 300% increase in muscle gain. It's like, well, what's need to be done in order to get that muscle gain? You can't just take a supplement and expect to grow muscle overnight. You don't wake up in the bed next morning and you've gained 10 kilos of muscle. The work needs to be done for that.
Yeah, and I think it's almost like they inadvertently keep out what's really required to help gain muscle, and we'll talk about what the science says next. Let's talk about fat burners. It's interesting because the obesity rate for kids is actually just continues to climb, especially in Australia. I would say in the Western world, and actually in Europe as well. Obesity never used to be a thing in Europe. Now it's actually become a bigger issue, especially with what's happening with COVID and whatnot. But let's talk about fat burners. So if you've got a kid who's overweight and they're going towards fat burners, what's the issues there?
If you've got kids who are overweight, fat burner should be the last thing that's on their mind. Even for males, females who are overweight, fat burner should be the last thing on their mind. And again, it's the marketing that is telling them, hey, fat burning, take this supplement and we'll burn 3 kilos in 3 days or whatever. So, but the kids, they're constantly bombarded by pressures to, especially that young adult phase, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, is they're told they have to conform to a specific body type, and that will typically be the leaner body type, especially if they're in a sport where their body type is essential, so swimming, gymnastics, even tennis to some extent. And fat burning it's essentially to go into more of what's actually in a fat burner. It could be things like caffeine, certain thermogenic compounds that will help boost metabolism and heat the body up to help burn more calories throughout the day, and just certain ingredients in that will help metabolize fat, but perhaps not burn body fat in a net deficit to actually remove body fat from the body. But if people who are overweight and kids who are overweight, focusing on things like the low-hanging fruits, and that's the big picture that a lot of people are missing. The low-hanging fruits that will actually get them to lose weight, like proper sleep, proper nutrition, proper training, and actually being in a calorie deficit and understanding what a calorie deficit is and how to get in a calorie deficit how to get in it and how to stay in it, and the things required around that as well.
Yeah, and we'll cross that in a sec. The last one is, I guess, the sporting performance. So we're going to talk about like pre-workouts, branched chain amino acids. We all have heard that, and the research with that as well is quite funny actually. With pre-workouts, we know a lot of kids get tired and fatigued, and they want to be able to come in, get a nice pump, and feel like they've worked really hard and pushed themselves really hard in the gym. As we mentioned before, fat burners are literally the kids shouldn't even be there in that territory in the first place. Let's talk about pre-workouts. Like, look, some kids are going to experiment with caffeine, coffee. We know a couple of kids that have coffee, and we just kind of have a discussion around that with them specifically on a case-by-case basis. And it seems like they've, one of the girls we work with, she was having 2 or 3 cups of coffee a day, and we've managed to get her down to 1, which I'm pretty happy with. But yeah, let's talk about the effects of like caffeine in terms of sporting performance and for kids, and
Yeah, so caffeine, by the biochemistry side, essentially it just makes you more alert and it gets those sleepy hormones away. So that's why you would take it first in the morning, because it starts to take those sleepy hormones away. In terms of the physical and physiological benefits you'll get from caffeine, is that it makes you more alert and it get you more aware of what's happening around you. So for sporting benefits, if you're playing AFL or tennis, basketball, you're not as mentally fatigued, I guess, and you're more aware of what's happening. So, whether it be the first tip off in AFL or basketball, you're more aware of who's around you, what speed the ball is traveling at, what direction it is, and things like that. It helps you make decisions better. So I think that'd be the main benefits of caffeine. Anything else to add on that?
Yeah, it's basically marketed as a way to improve performance.
Yeah,
I think that's the main thing, that this is going to help with their performance. But what we'll do is we'll talk about what's really going to help you with your performance in the long term and being more sustainable in a moment. But I want to cross back to my experience. I used to work in a supplement store. I worked there for a couple of months. I got some training whilst I was working there in terms of supplementation. I did my own research myself, so looked at some of the peer-reviewed stuff or journals, not stuff. And yeah, started to read a lot more and listen to a few more experts within the field. Lane Norton is definitely an expert in this field as well, and he's someone who's quite reputable within the bodybuilding, performance, and supplement space. But also, who's the other guy? Works with UFC fighters. Not Quinn Hannock. Andy Galpin. He's also really good in the supplement space as well. He's well known within the space and looks at a lot of research and does a lot of research himself. Long story short, so a lot of the supplement marketing is like, it feels like, you buy this protein powder, whether it's $50-$60, for a kilo, whatever it may be. And it's like, you're getting sold a potential dream. It's like, if you take this post-training, it's going to help with your recovery, and therefore it helps with the recovery, you're going to get stronger. But I feel like that's only like 4 pieces out of a 1,000-piece puzzle in order to help you get to where you want to be. So when I was, in the supplement store, I say like, cool, it's going to help with this, but are you doing X, Y, and Z? What's your training like? Are you following a good routine? Are you getting enough recovery? So sleep specifically, and also your food intake. And if they were crossing, and the frequency of training as well, if they were crossing those basic 3 things, with sleep, nutrition, and good training, and progressive over time, then yes, they are going to make progress, and they would even make progress without the supplements. You could definitely argue that point as well. But one of the biggest supplements that are always sold is branched chain amino acids. It's going to help with your recovery. It's going to, I can't remember what they said in the marketing. Yeah, because like as soon as you start breaking down tissue, branched chain amino acids is going to help with that recovery process.
Yeah, essentially branched chain amino acids, they're isoleucine, isovaline, and valine, and they're supposed to be the the most anabolic amino acids that you can
Is it
get.
isoleucine?
Leucine, isoleucine, and
Valine.
valine. And they're the ones that are the most anabolic, and they help boost muscle growth.
Yeah, I think that was the research that was kind of they trigger muscle protein synthesis, but I think a lot of these supplement companies took the piss out of this a little bit too much, and then they started creating all these weird ratios with their supplements, like a 20-1-1. That's what I've heard of, like an 8-1-1 and 4-1-1. But a lot of the experts and researchers in the field have actually said just consume protein regularly. You don't actually need it.
So you'll get your BCAAs or your branched chain amino acids in your protein powder, but in its full form with its other essential amino acids. You've got non-essential amino acids and amino acids. Your BCAAs are part of those groups. So just by having normal protein powder, you're getting those BCAAs.
Yeah, I think the research says muscle protein synthesis was a lot higher when you take branched chain amino acids, but in the food that we consume, anything that's like animal-based foods, poultry, fish, whatever it may be, that's animal-based, is going to have all these essential amino acids. Milk as well. A lot of dairy has all the essential amino acids, but it's sold specifically as this one thing, as it's going to be the game changer to creating your goals. Unfortunately, it is the 1,000-piece puzzle in order to help create what you want. Specifically. So that was always interesting. So usually you'd talk to them and find out what their goals are, and 9 times out of 10, they'll take the branched chain amino acids, saying they've been told by their friend or something like that. And it's like, what are you having for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? I'd start from there. And it's like, sounds like you're not even eating enough protein.
Yeah, if you're someone that's skipping breakfast and having toast and peanut butter and just no protein throughout the day, and then slam yourself from the gym with a 2-hour workout and slam yourself with pre-workout, BCAAs are doing nothing for you. They're just going straight through you until you're eating adequate protein intake and taking enough protein in, then that you actually start seeing growth. And then that's when BCAAs may have an effect for you.
Yeah, but I enjoyed my time there. I worked there. People would buy or supplements, test boosters, pre-workouts, you name it. Tried some stuff, and most of it I didn't really notice much of effect. But we'll talk about the supplements that have research behind them that actually work. But what does the science say? If we get sleep, nutrition, and good training, they're going to be the key factors in order to achieving your goals, whether it's improve your strength, power, speed, recovery, to be able to play a full season as well, and also be able to return from injuries as well. So if you sustain an injury as well, if you can get these elements under control, it's actually going to really help you move in the right direction. And the supplements is kind of like, it's not really necessary.
I think I might be wrong on this, but I think one of the main stats is like, if you have between 5 and 6 hours of sleep a night, your risk of injury goes up by 50%. So that's a very alarming statistic to know, especially as an athlete. You're injured, or you're waiting to be injured. So the nature of the sport is that if you're not injured, you're very lucky, and you want to do as much as you can to stay on the field. The best ability is availability. So, yeah.
Yeah, and we harp this on with a lot of the members here, especially the young kids, is like, if your sleep isn't good, we need to make some modifications pretty quickly in order to get it back on track. Because once your sleep does get into a bad habit, it takes a bit of time to get back into a good habit or good sleep cycle specifically. So number 1 is sleep, and I think it's a really big one. Number 2 is nutrition. Like, most kids don't even understand what good nutrition is these days. I don't think it's really taught.
Yeah, I think back to when I was 12, 13, 14. I didn't even know what calories were. I just ate food because it tastes good. So I think as a fitness professional and a youth fitness specialist is to do our best to educate the kids around nutrition and why we're eating certain foods. And one thing that you and I have both seen in an athlete is kids don't eat enough protein, and I don't know whether it stems from a parent's thing, or if maybe there's a stigma around protein. Or if you eat too much protein, you look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I've been eating heaps of protein. I still don't look like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Bad for your kidneys and liver. I've heard that one a few times.
Before. But if you're really concerned about your kidneys and liver, get a blood test. That's probably the best way to start seeing if things work for you. And yeah, the science might say this, but the science doesn't test you. And at the end of the day, the science is an average, and you may or may not be part of that average.
And going back to the protein thing, most kids don't even meet their protein requirements for growth and development. I can't remember the exact range, but I think it's between 0.8 to 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight
For muscle maintenance?
or just for development.
I'm not sure if it's relevant for kids, but from my top of my head, it's 1.8 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilo of lean body mass. So if you're a 50 kilo athlete, you want to be having around 100 grams of protein a day.
Yeah, and it's not too difficult these days actually to get that amount of protein. So that's number 2. Number 3 is good training. Let's talk about. We can go pretty deep into this really quickly, but what are the issues that we see with a lot of kids when they start training in the gym, and I guess they're trying to get results from their training?
Again, I think it just comes back to the stigma and the betrayal of the gym. Unless you've got someone who who's been to the gym before and actually done a proper program, most kids will come to the gym, start doing bodybuilding style workout, especially for young males, and I guess young females. Is that young males will look to improve their size, build curl for the girls, mirror muscles, chest, biceps, triceps, shoulders, all that sort of stuff. Don't skip legs, skip legs as well. But for the girls, it might be glutes, looking lean and things like that, and building their glutes, and the whole freaking industry built off booty bands and booty programs, things like that. But that's to the detriment of the athletic performance.
Yeah, if you want to become athletic, you need to train like an athlete. It's pretty simple with that one. But let's go for the final verdict. So let's talk about protein. So we talked about kind of the protein needs before.
Yep. So protein, we can group it under a sports and a dietary supplement. If you are someone who's incredibly busy and can't afford whole food protein sources, chicken, beef, lamb, tuna, meat-based proteins or dairy-based proteins, protein powder might be the way to go for you, because it is a supplement. So if you need to supplement on top of your current intake, go for your life.
Yeah, I don't always recommend or make the suggestion for our athletes to always go down the protein route. I always like to make sure they get whole food sources first. And as you mentioned before, a supplement is more of an add-on at the end of the day. Creatine. Let's talk about creatine. We haven't talked about it. I've been holding off.
So creatine, it's one of the most widely researched sports supplements out there at the moment. So creatine, you'll always find in a sports supplement store. You'll always find it in, you may find it in a Woolies. You definitely find it in a Chemist Warehouse. Essentially, it's a performance enhancer for your phosphocreatine system. So the ATP-PC system. That's the first system you use in any sort of explosive style movements, things like that. So to put it shortly, when you're doing explosive style movements, you'll run out of that creatine stores. So to supplement it, you're essentially bolstering more of what you can do. So it definitely does enhance performance, but I think some people think it enhances performance in a way that's way too much than they think what it should be.
Yeah, when I first used creatine, I felt my bench was flying out of nowhere. It was absolutely amazing.
Placebo?
I don't know, maybe. I don't know, but it definitely felt a lot more than normal. I know some of our members do take creatine as well for the performance and the recovery elements, and especially for those who play high intensity, so repeated high efforts. This can actually be quite good for them, especially with their training. Let's talk about the pump. Let's talk about BetaAlanine, citrulline, malate, and beetroot powder.
Yep. So BetaAlanine is again one of those widely researched sports supplements. If you've taken a pre-workout supplement before and you felt the tingles and you feel like the skin's really itchy, you've got BetaAlanine to thank for that. Most people will take BetaAlanine for that reason. They like the tingles, some may not. But essentially, the function that BetaAlanine has in the body is that it's a lactic acid bufferer. So it's actually a fatigue bufferer. So for sports that do work in that lactate threshold area, supplementing BetaAlanine may actually be helpful.
Rowing, running, cycling, anywhere, any sport where you're putting yourself in the hurt locker.
That's it.
In an acid bath.
Yeah.
Most people call it.
Citrulline malate and beetroot powder. So citrulline malate, again, quite a popular sports supplement in pump formulas. So you'll find a pre-workout citrulline malate helps to pump, that sort of stuff. Essentially, it's a vasodilator. So vasodilator means it dilates your arteries to help with nutrient delivery. So when you've got a pump, you want to get those arteries and circulatory system as dilated as possible to get those nutrients and get the pump. Beetroot powder, a little bit different. So this is naturally occurring. Beetroot powder is high in nitrates. Nitrates induce vasodilation as well, so you also get the pump through that.
Yeah. And I've actually suggested a few of our members to actually take this during their off season and pre-season, especially when they're doing a lot more high volume based training. It's definitely, and they've actually reported back saying they actually feel a lot better and they can push themselves a little bit harder in their training. So it's definitely been really beneficial. But yeah, we're going to wrap it up there today. Do you have 3 key takeaways that people can take home with them about supplements for youth athletes?
Yep. So for supplements is, first ask yourself, do you really need it? I would definitely ask, if you've got a coach, ask him, hey, do I need this supplement? Or we've had a lot of kids come up to us and ask, oh, is this protein powder good? Or is this pre-workout good? And using our experience and understanding their context as well, we'll give them a recommendation. But you can always get the benefits of supplementation through whole foods. So if in doubt, ask someone or just look how you can get it in whole foods. And again, what we said before is sleep, good nutrition and good training. They should be your big cornerstones before you think about anything else.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thanks for that. Enjoy.
You have just listened to the Inner Athlete podcast. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with the release of weekly episodes. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram to get great tips on all things youth athlete development and youth mentoring.